you first fall in love, we tend to see our partners through rose-colored glasses, but then time goes by, and then we start to see things a little more clearly. And at that point, it is common for some couples incompatibilities to actually creep up and then break down the relationship.
Don't I know it? So what is compatibility, and how do we know if the person that you're with is a good match for you? Here with everything you need to know is our very own relationship expert, Cynthia Loyst.
Oh.
Yeah! How you doing, Cynthia?
Wow.
This is wonderful.
Thank you.
Cynthia, can we start with the basics?
Yep.
What is romantic compatibility?
Well, so basically, it's the way that we click with someone. And I like to think of it as musical instruments. You know immediately, sometimes you just harmonize with somebody right out of the gate. Other times, the rhythm takes a bit of time to build. And some people you meet up and it's like, you are never gonna hold a note together. You are just gonna be a musical disaster. It's the same with people.
Okay, so how do we know, or what's, I guess, some easy ways to know, am I compatible with this person?
So research shows that we do this in all phases of our life. We do this when we're sizing up colleagues, friends, and of course, romantic partners. We're constantly kind of asking ourselves internal questions. I like to think of the 3 C's. So do we have chemistry? Is there kind of a vibe? And I think this is true even for non-romantic partners. Is there a kind of like connection? Are we kind of having a rhythm going? The other C is, am I finding points of connection with this person? In other words, do we share maybe a similar sense of humor, similar values, which we'll get into later on, similar kind of ways of speaking? Those things all matter. And the last C is, do I sense a capacity for growth? So, you know, is there a foundation here that I think we can build upon?
Interesting.
All right, so what about the whole opposites attract thing? Because I've heard that throughout my dating life. It's like, yeah, opposites, you gotta get someone the opposite of you. What about that?
I do think opposites attract, and I do think that you can have certain elements in your relationship that are opposites. For example, in my partnership, one of us is kind of an extrovert. I mean, I'm a bit lean both ways, but my partner is very much an introvert. I think the problems crop up when you've got too many of these opposite points. I think that they may be workable in the beginning stages, but down the road, if you want a long-term relationship, that's where problems can crop up.
Okay, so you said that sometimes it might actually feel like compatibility, but really it's a red flag in disguise. So give us an example.
Okay, so an example of this, there's something that some people refer to as your wound mate. So go with me. You meet somebody, you feel like there's an attraction there, but it may be because they replicate a kind of memory of early imprinting, right? So maybe you had an early caregiver. You're nodding. I think people will immediately identify themselves. So it could be an early caregiver. It could be even a first romantic partner who imprinted upon you. And maybe they were not that great. Maybe they were kind of problematic.
So you
maybe
replicate the bad pattern.
That's right. That's right. It feels familiar.
You go back to it.
Even though it's not good for you. The second red flag I would watch out for is when people are actually not living their authentic self. So let me give you an example. Let's say, pick a random man who maybe got the messaging that he has to be a sort of alpha in order to attract a female. He might be walking around the world presenting as a wolf. And who is he going to attract? Other people who like wolves, who are wolves themselves maybe. If inside he's a little lamb, eventually that partnership's not going to work out. Resentments will build up and it's going to just collapse.
Cynthia. Can we talk about signs to look out for when it comes to compatibility? You've come up with an acronym to help us. What is it?
Okay, I love an acronym.
I love.
I hope this will help people remember. So the acronym is LOVE. So starting with L. So the L stands for libido.
We have a very firm applause in the audience for libido.
But I bet it's not the way we think.
You know, the thing is that one of the most common questions that I get is in the realm of desire discrepancy. It's like, my partner wants too much, I want, it's this thing that often isn't very visible right at the beginning. And I say that the sooner you can figure this out, the better. Ask if you're sexually compatible. So some things to watch out for. Is sex important to both of us? And in the same way, do we even mean the same thing when we think about intimacy and sexuality? Are we a once a week, once a day, once a month, or once a year kind of person? Are we kinky or vanilla? Are we monogamous or monogamish? These are all things, I'm not saying you do this on the first date, but as you're starting to build, these are questions you might want to answer.
I know we have to get to O, but I just know that when you're first dating somebody, you're so horny.
It's true.
And then, let the dust settle. You can't ask these questions on the first date when you just want to jump in bed with them.
You gotta let the dust settle a bit. bit. but
Why
don't
am I
wait
talking
too
about my
long.
own
But
personal life? Way too much.
What's too long?
I would say
Yes,
it depends on when you
yes.
started, but I would
Yeah.
say within the couple of months of starting, if you're thinking if this might be
So
serious.
should you just be like, this is not going to happen all the time, honey?
That's right.
Like,
Don't
be
get
clear.
Get used to
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Get it clear.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, next one is O.
O stands for, what does O stand for?
Orgasm.
Sorry.
No, just kidding.
O stands for openness. And so this is a personality trait. So you are either sort of like inclined to be more of an adventure person, someone who likes to take maybe a bit of risks, who has an open mind. I'm not saying the opposite is closed, but someone who's less open-minded might like familiarity, routine, comfort, similar interest.
Love that.
Right?
Okay,
Right?
VV.
All right, so what kinds of questions
Oh.
should we be ask ourselves to assess our partner's
Exactly.
openness?
So I'm not saying again first date, but you could ask questions like, and I can ask it to you guys. Do you like to try new foods or travel? I think everyone
Yeah.
here is kind of
Yeah.
openness. Do you have a vivid imagination? Do you tend to vote for liberal-leaning politics? Do you enjoy hearing new ideas? All of those, if those are yes answers, you probably are an open person,
Okay.
and you might want to find a person who also leans
Who's
open.
also open.
Okay?
Oh, that's helpful. That's helpful. So we're looking out for libido and openness. So what about V?
It is not vulva. V stands for value system, and I mentioned this off the top, and regardless, it is so helpful. If you get the chance, Google values, and you'll easily find a list of 50 to 100 words that range from anything from, awareness to wisdom to loyalty, like all kinds of traits. And what you do is you go through them quickly and pick your top 5. And an interesting
Oh.
exercise is to see what your partner's top 5
Yeah.
are. And it doesn't mean that if you have different values that you're automatically not going to work. It's just that if their value is, let's say, family and tradition, and yours is freedom and like escape, that this might cause problems if you want to build a life together.
Okay, quickly, E of love.
E comes down to emotional intensity. So this is where conflict arises. So a lot of times in relationships, there's a turtle and there's a hailstorm. When it comes to conflict situations, you know who you are probably immediately. There's the turtle who likes to internalize when there's arguments and things like that. And then there's the hailstorm that likes to go about and be big. You might want, it doesn't mean you can't, again, Jason and I have this dynamic. I'm the hailstorm, but I've become more of a rainfall.
Yeah.
And he's come a little bit more out of his shell. So you can work with this dynamic.
Oh, I love that.
Okay, all right. So what about the person who's watching at home right now and they're in a partnership and they're like, they're listening to you going, I don't know if I'm compatible with my partner. Is all lost? Should they file for divorce? Like, what do you do? Can you fix these issues?
I think the key things is it takes a lot of bravery to show up as your true and authentic self, and we are always a work in progress. And I will say, ultimately, the 2 most important things for a long-term relationship are self-inquiry and communication. So if you can learn those skills,
So
you
it's
can
almost like putting yourself first in a sense.
figure
make sure-
yourself out.
Yeah.
And then get to know your partner.
Oh,
and you can always relearn.
Cynthia. Thank you. Thank you so much. This was real food for thought. I can't wait to go home tonight. Hey, we're going to be right back.
Hey, you, come a bit closer. We've got so many more must-see interviews, spicy debates, lifestyle tips, and pop culture moments. So subscribe to our channel by tapping the logo below and don't miss out.